Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another amazing guest, Mr. Hugh Liddle. And Hugh and I are going to talk about sales mindset and what you need and why you need it to be successful, to get to the top 1%. Now, you might say, well, Doug, I don't need sales mindset. Well, sales mindset consists of three things: not only yourself, but your process and your client side of the business. We're going to discuss those in length. And we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts and why nots and all of that good content stuff that you might be looking for when you're listening to this podcast, because the reality is that if you don't have all three of these in place, it will upend your sale in most cases. So without further ado, let's go talk to Hugh. Hugh, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. You and I have known each other now for, a couple of years anyways, right? So we're going to talk about the sales mindset for the 1% today. And you are an expert in your right at Red Cap, which is a sales coaching company. And so I'm glad you're here to talk about this very important topic. So my first question is, what is sales mindset, really? Because a lot of people have their own definition of it.
I think that a sales mindset has to do with the way you're thinking about yourself, the way you're thinking about the sales process, and the way that you're thinking about your prospective clients. And in my opinion, the sales mindset is as important, if not more important, than the skill set that people have in sales. Because you can be really, really good at the details of how you do things. And if you go into a sales conversation with a mindset that's less than what it really should be, you're probably not going to make a sale.
It's really, so this is a great way of looking at it, because a lot of people think, well, sales mindset, that's all about me. But what you're saying is it's about you, the process, and the clients themselves. It's one cohesive, comprehensive system versus just the piece about, well, geez, Doug's got to work on his own mind, because Doug's had to work on his own mind for the last 60 years, as far as Doug knows, right? So, and some days a little more than others. But I do agree with you that it is the most important. The thing that I see, and maybe I want to ask you the same question is, do you see this as like the thing that people don't want to work on the most in sales? Or is it just me that's seeing that?
I'm not sure that they don't want to work on it. I'm not sure they even are aware that it exists or that it's a challenge. And
good point.
Often salespeople, when they work for another company, especially if they're not working for themselves, they're under pressure from a sales manager, a vice president of sales, the ownership of the company, and you have to make sales. You have to do this. You have to be successful. You have to bring in so many clients. You have to bring in so much money. And if you don't, we're going to get rid of you. And in an environment like that, it's very, very difficult to keep the proper mindset, because the focus, where your focus is a huge part of the mindset process. If you go into a sales conversation and you're thinking about the stack of bills that you have on the desk, and man, I got to make a sale. I got to get them to do this. Or if you just had a disagreement with your significant other before you went to work and it's still bugging you and you're still thinking about that. Or you're thinking about the fact that your sales manager told you you better step up and you better get some sales or it's going to be over with. Or even if you're just thinking about what you're going to do this weekend or you're going to do after work today, and you have a prospect sitting in front of you, your focus is in the wrong place. And when that happens, and Doug, you know this probably better than anybody. You've been in sales for a long time. There's an energy that passes between a salesperson and a prospect. And it doesn't make any difference if you're selling belly to belly, face to face, or whether you're selling on Zoom like we are right now, or if you're selling on the telephone. People feel the energy that's coming from you, and they know whether your focus is really on them and helping them, or if your focus is someplace else. And if they sense that your focus is someplace else, it's pretty much a no sale. And let me illustrate it like this. Anybody who's old enough to have had any experience talking to salespeople has had the experience of really wanting to buy something, maybe even needing to buy something. And you talk with the salesperson and they do a pretty good job of explaining their product or service. And, they're okay. And it comes time to make the decision. And you just get that feeling in the pit of your stomach that I don't know what it is. There's just something wrong here. I think I'm going to tell them I want to think about it. And then I'll check around and I'll see if I can find somebody else to buy it from, because this just doesn't feel good to me. I believe that almost all the time when that happens, it's because the salesperson's focus is in the wrong place and the prospect senses that. Our buddy Gene McNaughton is fond of saying that people can smell commission breath 5 miles away. And I believe that is an absolute truth. So part of the mindset is keeping yourself focused on the prospective client. What do they think? How do they feel? What's their situation? What challenges are they experiencing? What do they want more of in their life or their business? What do they want less of in their life or their business? What is it that's going on for them? And if you're focused on that and on helping them solve whatever their problem is, whatever their challenge is, whatever the reason is that they're talking to you, then you're going to be successful a high percentage of the time. If you don't keep your focus there, you're not going to be.
Well said. We're speaking with Mr. Hugh Liddle, and owns a company called Red Cap Sales Coaching. And Hugh, I loved what you said, because this is, so there were 3 parts, right? There was clients, process, and ourselves, right? So this is the client side. We got to be very focused on the client, have the right sales mind, if you will, on and around that client. And they can sense it. I agree with you 100%. And if any of you don't believe this, just try to have a conversation with your significant other and then get distracted in the middle, right? And I have to laugh, Hugh, because I was in a restaurant and I was watching guy and gal, talking to one another. They're eye to eye, locked on, everything seems to be going right. Very beautiful, beautiful lady walks by. And all he does is he turns his head to the left and then turns it right back. And I saw her face, his significant other's face, completely change. And I was like, okay, he's dead, right? This conversation's not going, no sale there. Or at least we got lots of objections coming up, right? Because he just broke his focus on what mattered to her, the receiver. And I've seen women do the same thing, right? So it's not just a guy thing. They get distracted. They look down at their cell phone, let me check Facebook. My friends are doing this or whatever. And it pulls it off on a personal level. On a business to business level, it's the same exact thing. I just had a gentleman, a couple nice guys come into the house, had another guy come into the house. I'm looking to buy a pellet stove, right? It's it's like a $5,000, $7,000 investment, right, for the house. But one of the guys talking to my wife then took his focus off and started to play guy to guy. Hey, let me focus on the man, and he neglected her. And I can tell you right there, the sale just started going right downhill for this man. And not only with her, but with me as well. And so it's one of those situations that I agree wholeheartedly. And people, those of you who are listening to this, write this down. I think it was Tony Robbins that I first heard say, attention goes where attention flows, or something like that, right? It was like where energy flows. Attention goes where energy flows. So if you're locked in on this client thing and you're focused on what's in it for them, and you're playing win-win with these people, they're going to sense it. And you can walk away with integrity at that point, even if you have to make commission. But you'd be surprised. I mean, Hugh, I've done this. I imagine you have too, where you just didn't think that it wasn't going to close. It was one of those things, but you just stayed cued in, just like you're talking about. And all of a sudden they go, yeah, I'll take that.
The conversation continues until somebody says no.
Correct. But if the energy and the mind is in the right place, that, you become like a synergistic mind play. It's really like a mastermind going on at that point. And you're building high empathy, high rapport, high respect, high trust, all of that. That goes a lot further than you having all the technical knowledge in the world. Two people who have the technical knowledge of the same level, one they really like and respect, the other they don't so much. They're going with the one they like, they respect, no matter what, even if the price is higher in many cases.
Yeah, and to expand what you mentioned a few minutes ago, just a little bit more, every conversation that we have in life is really a sales conversation.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're talking to your significant other, your kids, your coworkers, your boss, somebody that you meet at a social event. It doesn't matter. There's always selling that's going on. And it's successful selling if you're focused in on the other person rather than on yourself. It just works that way. Life is like that.
It's been that way since the beginning of time, I suspect. So we got clients on the mindset. Let's talk about process. I'm listening. I got my pen out. Like, okay, what do I need to know on sales mind process? Hugh, enlighten me, please. I can imagine people are saying that out there now.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing is there are some habits that you need to form that really kind of revolve around mindset. And one of those is asking open-ended questions rather than closed-ended questions. And a closed-ended question, of course, is a question that can only be answered yes or no. An open-ended question starts with who, what, where, when, why, or how, and it can't be answered yes or no. People have to talk with you about what they're perceiving, what they're thinking. And if you're asking closed-ended questions in a sales conversation or any conversation, you may save some time. And that's the objection that I hear most of the time about asking open-ended questions. Well, if I ask an open-ended question, people are going to talk, and then it's going to take me a long time to have my meeting, and I only have so long. It doesn't matter how long the meeting is, as long as you're getting the information that you need to be able to help people reach a conclusion. So ask questions open-ended, and not only in sales conversations, make it a habit in all of your conversations. If you're having a conversation with your significant other and you ask a question, ask it open-ended, and you'll find out what's really on his or her mind. When you're talking with your kids and you ask them questions, ask them open-ended questions. And it's absolutely fascinating what's going on in those little brains of theirs. It's hilarious, really. It's awesome. You'll find out what they're really thinking. And in a sales conversation, the overarching sales philosophy, as far as I'm concerned, and there are some sales managers and and sales coaches and trainers who will probably disagree with me about this. I believe that it's not our job as salespeople to get other people to do what we want them to do, or what we think they should do, or even what we know they should do. It's our job to find out what they want to do and then help them do that. And the reason I believe that that's so vital and why that's a significant part of the mindset is that people don't buy what they need. They buy what they want.
Right.
If you go out and look in my garage, you'll see the truth of that, because I've got boxes of stuff that we bought that we wanted and we didn't really need it. And so it's in a box in the garage, but we bought it because we wanted it. And I don't care what your product or service is, people will buy it because they want it, not necessarily because they need it. So if you're spending time in your sales conversation trying to convince people that they need what you have to offer and that they have to do this in order to be successful, and you're convincing them that they should do it, it's really not nice to should all over people. So, don't do that. Ask them questions, ask them open-ended questions about what they want, and even deeper than that, why they want it. And if you find out those two things, if you find out what they want and why they want it, you're most of the way to a positive buying decision. Then it's just a matter of whether they believe they can afford it or not. It's a matter of how badly they want it.
Right. And it usually comes down to that criteria. And, it's so basically, if we all think about what we bought, like you said, you got your garage full of this or that, right? We've all done that. But I mean, I just paid $50 the other day for 2 bags of popcorn, right?
That must be good popcorn, brother.
Oh, no, it actually wasn't the greatest popcorn in the world. But the thing is I came out of a store and there was the Boy Scouts of America, and they were doing a fundraising process. And so the little guy asked me, hey, would you like to help out would you like to buy a bag of popcorn? That's what he said. And I said to him, I think you're asking an incorrect question. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, maybe you ought to ask me a question like, what do I think about the Boy Scouts of America? And so he said, oh, what? And his father said, yeah, that's a good question. I said, ask me. Right. So I was playing with him and I was teaching him. And he said, what do you think about the Boy Scouts of America? I said, well, I could never make it through the Boy Scouts of America because I only went for one day. But I really find it's a great organization that helps young men, help find their way through life and parts and gives them skills and that type of thing. And the little boy looked at me like perplexed, right? And I said, next question. Would you like to help the Boy Scouts of America to help more of these type of people who will be better citizens in life? And his father said, ask him. And I asked, and he did. So here's the deal. I won't go through the whole thing. I gave him $50 because what I wanted to do was teach the kid. I wanted to teach him that if he asked it the right type of questions, sir, how do you want the Boy Scouts of America to make a great impact in life? An open-ended question, right? And so I asked that, and then I said, when you ask the right questions, somebody usually buys more than you expect. So you want me to take 1 bag of popcorn for $17? I said, give me what I can for $50. Right. And so he upsold me, but I upsold myself. Right. So,
and that's such a great illustration of the fact that you didn't buy those bags of popcorn because you wanted popcorn.
No.
You bought those bags of popcorn because you wanted to help.
Yeah.
That's an emotional want, and people buy based on emotion. They don't buy on head, on thinking. They buy on emotion, what they feel, what they want. So it's the same way with any kind of a sale. There's a reason why people buy what they buy. The famous illustration is that if somebody goes into the hardware store to buy a drill, They don't want a drill. They want a hole in the wall.
Right.
And so they want the result that comes, not necessarily the thing that produces the result. I work a lot with chiropractors. And one of the things that my chiropractic clients do is they ask questions that are emotionally based. It's not just about where does it hurt, how much does it hurt, how long has it hurt, and what have you done about it so far?
Right.
It's about what are you not able to do right now that you'd love to do and you can't because your back hurts. How on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you really want to change your life and your health right now? Those kinds of open-ended questions that are emotionally based will tell you why and that's what you taught the Boy Scout. You taught the Boy Scout to ask questions to find out what people really want, what really motivates them. Why would they want that product or that service?
And what I got out of that was I felt good that maybe I was rooting a seed in a child to give him a better opportunity to create leverage in his life. And that's, $50 was like, I was gleeful to pay it, right? For 2 bags of popcorn. So we're speaking with Mr. Hugh Liddle with Red Hat Sales Coaching. We're talking about sales mind and how do you got to have your sales in order to be at the top 1%. And we're talking about process right now. So sales process has a lot of different things. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on just sales process, but what I'm hearing you is you want to create your process so that the end client, the other part of the sales mind, the third part, so that the second part actually supports what they want and gives them the ability to invest in that based on their level of commitment. And so, one of the pieces would be like follow-up, for example. A lot of salespeople, they think, hey, follow-up's kind of an afterthought. No, it's got to be part of the process, or as people say in Canada or UK, process. And so all of these pieces, I would challenge anybody to sit down and think about their process and say, okay, how do I create my mind around this process so it happens every single time so it's in for the benefit of the client? Because follow-up is just a common courtesy, and the reality is most people don't do a great job at it. So, people feel neglected, then their emotions go down and say, well, they don't care about me so much. If I can illustrate this, Hugh, when I was in live speech, if you will, I would ask the audience, especially the women, how long you go out on a great date? How long do you have, does the man have in order to, get in contact with you? And so I would ask the men and they'd be like, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, whatever, I'll try to get back in the first day. But if I don't, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, right? You ask the women the same question, Hugh. It was always they have 24 hours or less on the high percentage. A few would say, no, you got 48 hours. And then I would say to the women, so if the men are saying 2 days or 3 days, and they don't call you for 4 days, what happens? And they would all go dead meat, right? It was such a rapport break because they're not following up. So in our process, we've got to have that in our mindset. And I'm glad you brought process up, Hugh, because I would have probably not thought that one as clearly through as you did, those 3. And so process has to be systematic and happen for their benefit. So let's go to the one that I said, well, nobody wants to work on that, but it's really not a true statement. They do want to work on it, as you said, but it's usually not the first one they want to work on. They want to work on how do I bring the money in, and then I'll fix my own mind later on, that type of thing. But I don't know. I would state to me that that's probably the most important one to constantly work on or consistently work on, or the most valuable one to work on, because it affects the other 2. Thoughts?
Let me do one more thing about process that I think is really, really vital, and then we'll go to the what do we think about ourselves piece of things. Value statements are an important part of the process, and there's a saying that somebody came up with a long time ago that selling is telling. I don't agree with that.
I agree too.
And selling is more about asking questions and listening really, really carefully with your ears and your mind and your heart to what the answer is. The value statement part of things, after you've determined what they want and why they want it, the value statement part of it is just letting them know that they can have what they just said that they wanted when they work with you. It's about the result that they're going to receive. I always am kind of fearful when I talk to chiropractors about this, but you're not a chiropractor, so I can share this with you. I love sausage. I love just about anything that comes off a pig. Sausage is my favorite. I don't care how it's made. I don't care what's in it. All I care about is when it comes out of the skillet onto the plate next to my pancakes or my eggs, it better make my tongue jump up and beat my brains out because it is just so good. I want the result. When I write a song, there's not anybody that cares about the process that I went through to write a song or record it. They don't care. All they care about is whether they like the song or not.
Right.
So when you're sitting in front of a prospect and they're there to talk with you about your product or service, they don't care how you do it, how it's made. You may have some analytical people who ask you some questions about that kind of thing. More than 3/4 of the population doesn't care how you do it or how it's made or what your situation is. And so when you're giving value statements to people, whether you're doing it in your marketing or your sales conversations or your follow-up or whatever you're doing, use you statements. Get away from the us, we, our, me, my, I. Get away from that stuff and talk about you and your. You can have, you can do, you can be, you can learn, you can take advantage of. You can. Because that way you're directly answering the question that every one of your prospects has in their minds when they sit down in front of you. What's in it for me? How's my life going to be better? How's this going to make me happy? How is this going to make me more peaceful? How is this going to make me more productive or more profitable? What's it going to do for me? And when you start talking about, well, now what we do is we help you do this or we help you do that. And you know what? I just love helping people. Well, who cares what you love? How about what I love? How about what's important to me? How is this going to do something for me? So use you statements and you're answering that question directly. And you're talking about them instead of yourself. And that's the mindset piece of it. Because we do like to talk about ourselves. Resist that temptation if you possibly can in every aspect of your sales process. When you're building rapport with people, you meet somebody socially, you meet them at a Chamber of Commerce meeting or a networking meeting. Ask them open-ended questions and let them talk about themselves and just chime in and tell them when there's a little bit of common ground that you've discovered there. Don't talk all about yourself and your business and what you're doing and how you're doing it, and just let them talk. And you'll be seen as the greatest conversationalist in the entire world. That's hard to do, though, because Doug likes to talk about himself. Hugh likes to talk about himself. So you have to develop the mindset and the habit of asking questions and letting somebody else talk. And then instead of talking about how long you've been in business, what your education level is, how many wonderful clients you have that just think you're the greatest, sing and dance and do a little commercial for yourself, tell your prospect what's in it for them when they work with you. What are they going to get? What are they going to receive? And if you do that, you're going to be successful a much higher percentage of the time than if you're talking about yourself.
So that goes to actually working on us, right? Our own selves, and I love what you said about no one cares. I mean, I've never asked, when I had a toothache, I never asked the dentist what his GPA rating was, in school. What was his grade point average, right? Or hers. And so I just wanted to get this pain solved. And that was the issue. So let's go to talking about a little more in depth about, all right, I buy into this concept. I got clients, I got process. Now I got myself. How do I start working on myself?
The first place is, what do you think about yourself? I've heard so many people say, well, I'm just not a salesperson. I'll tell you a story about that. My wife would be the very first one to tell you, I'm not a salesperson. I wouldn't want to be a salesperson. She tells me she hates salespeople, which is really funny considering what I do for a living. And she is a tremendous salesperson. She sold me on moving from Colorado to Florida about 12 years ago. And the way that she did it was, she started telling me about how wonderful life would be when we lived in Florida. I wouldn't have to shovel snow anymore. I wouldn't have to drive in snow anymore. Two things that I complained about a lot when I lived in Colorado in the winter. She talked about the leaves on the trees and the grass stays green the whole year round. And it's just so nice. It doesn't turn all brown and all the leaves don't fall off the trees and it's not dark and it's not sparse. The sun shines a lot of the time. It'll be wonderful. And I'll make you a wonderful home when we move down there. And then she asked for the sale. She said, I'm moving to Florida. You want to go or not? I said, yeah, I think I'll go. And here I am in Florida and happy as a clam. She kept every promise she made. So from the time that you popped out of your mama's belly, you've been selling. Because selling is very much a process of giving other people what they want. And the two people who created that little being that ended up being you wanted nothing more than to make you comfortable and make sure that you had everything that you needed and that you were happy and that your whole life was just absolutely wonderful. And you gave them the opportunity to do that because anytime that you were wet or hungry or needed some comfort, just wanted somebody to pick you up and hold you, you yelled and screamed. And you gave them the opportunity to do that. You've been selling since you were a little bitty kid. And kids are the best salespeople in the entire world because nobody told them that it's horrible and icky and you shouldn't do that because it's just terrible. You're taking advantage of people. They haven't heard that. And so many people have. And selling has a bad reputation for good reason, because in days gone by, it was done really, really badly.
Sure.
It was manipulative. It was coercive. It wasn't a good deal at all. And so it got a reputation as being something really horrible. Probably the stereotypical salesperson is the used car salesman. Nobody wants to be a used car salesman. They're just horrible. Listen, one of the best sales conversation I was ever in on the receiving end was with a used car salesperson, and he was magnificent. Right. He asked great questions. He did everything right. I mean, it was just awesome. And walked away from that whole situation just happy and feeling like, wow, what a great experience I just had. That was so cool. If you think about selling and you think about yourself as a salesperson, as helping other people get what they want, if that's your mindset, you're going to be successful in selling. Because again, with the energy, people are going to pick that energy up and know that you do care, know that you are trying to help, know that you are a good person, and that you're not one of those sleazy people that's going to try to twist their arm or shame them or trick them or, try to get them to do what you want them to do. That you really do care about them. So you have to believe that you're that kind of person, and that when you're selling, you're being that kind of person. You're being of service. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is that you have to believe that the company that you're representing is the best choice that people could make to buy the product or service that's being offered. And that goes to more than just the quality of the product or service. That's the third thing that you really have to believe in. And that your mindset has to be in the right place as far as your product or service. The company that you work for, if you work for somebody else, or your own company, if you have your own company, what's your company like? How do they treat their prospects? How do they treat their customers or their clients? How do they treat the people who work for them? What are their morals? What are their ethics? And if you don't feel 100% convinced that nobody could make a better choice than to work with your company, to buy the product or service from your company and receive customer service from your company, go find another company to work for.
Right.
Because you can't go into a sales conversation and project the energy and the confidence and the enthusiasm that you need to project out to your prospect if you don't believe 100% in the company that you're representing. And I've heard so many people, like in the heating and air conditioning business, I've heard a lot of people say, well, our company's really good sales wise and they do a great job with that and they have a great product. Oh man, the installation and the follow-up and the customer service, it just sucks.
Right.
Well, listen, get the people who own the company, or if you own the company, change that or go do something different.
Yep. It goes back to that process you were talking about and the belief and the mindset of the whole process.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, Doug, that and this is just so key. The energy that you project out to the prospect is exactly the energy that you're going to get back from them, which means that if you're not confident that you're the kind of person that anybody would love to sit down and have a great conversation with, and that you really are a great salesperson because you're easy to talk to and you ask good questions and you really care about the people you're talking to. So who wouldn't want to have a conversation with you? If you don't have that confidence when you go into the sales conversation, the people you're talking to aren't going to have confidence either. And if they don't have confidence in you, they're not going to buy. If you don't believe 100% in your company and you think there are some things they could really improve, they're not really that great, you're going to project that in your energy toward the person with whom you're talking, and they're going to think, maybe this isn't such a good deal after all. Maybe this isn't something I should do. And they don't buy. If you don't believe 100% in your product or service, the people you're talking to won't believe in it either. And if they don't believe in it, they won't buy. And that's why I believe that the mindset that we have and that we project it just makes or breaks your success as a salesperson. Absolutely does.
Well said. Hey, Hugh, if people want to get a hold of you, they want to learn more about you, how do they?
My website is redcapsalescoaching.com. And what they can do when they go to that site, what they'll find, first of all, is there's a whole bunch of good free stuff on there. There are podcasts, there are blogs. Check out Doug's podcasts that he's done with Red Cap Sales Coaching. I mean, that's just top of the line stuff. He and Gene McNaughton just tore it up and did a great job on those podcasts. Be sure that you listen to those and listen to all the podcasts. There's just some great stuff on there. Doesn't cost you a dime to get a tremendous education in sales, marketing, leadership, business, and success when you do that. There are blogs on there. There are videos on there. There are surveys that you can take on there that are really tremendous. And if you would like to chat with me and get an individualized sales success roadmap put together for you, and have that done absolutely free. On every page on the website, there's a link that you can click and you can go to my calendar and you can schedule a time. It's absolutely free. There's no obligation whatsoever when we have the conversation. And there's absolutely no pressure. It's just a fun, friendly conversation because I practice what I preach, just like Doug does.
Awesome.
And I also just want to say, Doug, before we quit, that listen, folks, Doug is a tremendous mentor and teacher and coach. And you're listening to his podcast and you're getting bits and pieces of his brilliance in the podcast. Be sure that you have a chat with him and take advantage of his services because he's just flat awesome. And you can't go wrong working with him.
Thanks, Hugh. And I didn't pay you to say that, right? That's funny. Well, Hugh, thanks for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I really appreciate and very grateful to the open-ended conversation that we were having. I know a lot of people got a lot out of this. So thanks again.
Doug, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I had a great time.
Okay, then. So here's the thing. Most people want to work on their business first and then work on the mindset later on. And as you can see, mindset's not just about, just working on the business, right? I mean, it's about working on the client side of the business. It's about working on the process side of your business. It's also about working on you and your belief systems on and around, because the reality is your belief systems can upend your sale without question. I've seen this numerous times just in the past few months, where somebody's selling something, their belief system gets in the way and they back themselves out of a sale. Now, also process can be something that can literally upend your whole sale. Follow-up being one of those things, as we talked about in the actual podcast here. Follow-up is a common courtesy. People expect it. It's not a maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. It is something that if you don't and your competitors do, they're going to position ahead of you. So what I ask yourself is, how do I make this work for me, right? That's the question to ask. How do I make this work for me? What if you sat down just for 15 minutes a week, started looking at your business and go, how can I make communication better with my clients? How can I have my processes working better? And how do I work on myself, my brain, my belief systems? And so it's supporting all of these. And you just that 15 minutes a day, once a week for the next 10 months. Where would you be? A lot further ahead, I bet. Anyways, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. If you love the content of this particular show and you go, hey, you know what? I've got a subject matter I want Doug to talk about and I want him to find a guest, or you know what? I can be a guest on this particular podcast because I have these great things to say. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you got great things to say, reach out to us at CEOsalesstrategies.com. That's YOUMATTER at CEOsalesstrategies.com. And if you love this podcast and you haven't subscribed to it, please do so. The more subscribers you get, the better the rankings. And if you would give it a 5-star review, if you feel it's worth that, I would be most grateful. And of course, if you want to get yourself, someone in your business, someone you know, or your company into the top 1% of sales globally for your industry in your market, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Until next time, go sell a lot, sell it for profit, make someone happy, help somebody in their life. You'll feel better about yours too. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, signing off.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit CEOsalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success,